Let me read to you a passage from the 9th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 32 to 38. It's the Gospel for Tuesday after the 14th Sunday in Ordinary Time. St. Matthew writes, "While they were going out, a man who was demon-possessed and could not talk was brought to Jesus. And when the demon was driven out, the man who had been mute spoke. The crowd was amazed and said, 'Nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel.' But the Pharisees said, 'It is by the prince of demons that he drives out demons.' Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and dejected, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field.'" That's from Matthew chapter 9, verses 32 to 38. What does it suggest to us? Well, I was once talking to a well-educated Christian lawyer, and he supposed that Jesus Christ could neither read nor write. Not at all. I do not know how he gained such an idea. If there is one thing that is manifest in the Gospels, it is that Christ was steeped in the reading and knowledge of the Scriptures. At his parents finding him in the temple, he was discovered to be holding the doctors of the law in rapt attention with his intelligence and questions. My assumption is that the great child was showing a familiarity with the Scriptures, an understanding of their drift, with questions so penetrating as to be beyond their past experience. When he addressed his own townspeople in their synagogue, we read that he stood up to read, and there was given him the book of the prophet Isaiah. He found the place he wanted, read from it, and then spoke. Luke chapter 4, verse 17 to 21. We read how during his public ministry, the Jews marveled at him in his teaching. They said, "How is it that this man has learning when he has never studied?" John chapter 7, verse 15, meaning that he, a manifest authority, had never, like, say, Saul of Tarsus, studied in the schools under an acknowledged master. Christ quoted the Scriptures in all sorts of contexts. He was plainly a man of Holy Writ. The sacred writings formed and nourished his human mind. Therefore, incidentally, should the Christian be also a person of the Scriptures. The point here, though, is that in our passage from St. Matthew that I read earlier, Christ again shows himself to be thinking as God himself thinks in the books of Moses, the Psalms, and the prophets. Gazing on the crowds, we read, he has compassion on them, for they seemed like helpless and harassed sheep that lacked their shepherd. In the landmark event in the Torah that set the grand process going, God appears to Moses in the burning bush. He has compassion on his people who are harassed and dejected. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. I have seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey." Exodus chapter 3, verse 6 to 8. God saw that his people were like harassed sheep without a shepherd. The psalmists repeatedly cry to God from the midst of harassment and dejection. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire, where there is no foothold. Answer me, O Lord, for your steadfast love is good. According to your abundant mercy, turn to me. Psalm 69. God is seen as the shepherd of his people. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, you who lead Joseph like a flock. Psalm 80. How dear to Christ must have been the psalm of David, his forefather, who had himself been a shepherd, as we read in the first book of Samuel, chapter 16. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23, verse 1 to 4. The prophets too employed this image, notably in Ezekiel. The prophet was commanded to, as we read, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. They do not feed the sheep. The weak you have not strengthened. The sick you have not healed. The crippled you have not bound up. The strayed you have not brought back. So they were scattered because there was no shepherd, and they became food for all the wild beasts. My sheep were scattered. Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 1 to 6. So God promises to rescue my sheep from their mouths. I myself will search for my sheep and will seek them out, and I will rescue them from all places where they have been scattered on a day of clouds and thick darkness. I myself will be the shepherd of my sheep. Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 10 to 15. Indeed, God promises to set up over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he shall feed them. He shall feed them and be their shepherd, and I, the Lord, will be their God. Chapter 34, verse 23 to 24. All of these inspired allusions would have been surely filling the sacred heart of Jesus as he gazed upon the crowd and beyond them to the world. They were harassed and dejected like sheep without a shepherd. Gazing on the field, to use a different image, he saw the immense need of workers, for the harvest was great. As we heard, then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field. Matthew chapter 9, verse 32 to 38. That is to say, at the heart of the incarnation was a divine mission to the world. Those who wish to take their place with Jesus Christ are called to share in his mission. It is to bring all the sheep to the one shepherd. The call then to be a shepherd of Christ's flock is an exalted call. There are various forms of this vocation. All, by baptism and confirmation, share in the mission of Christ according to the circumstances of their particular God-given vocation. In a special and essentially distinct sense, those ordained to the ministerial priesthood care for the flock of Christ. What must drive them is love for the Good Shepherd, as we read in the risen Christ's conversation with Simon Peter. Simon, do you love me? Christ asked Simon 3 times. Yes, Lord. Then feed my lambs, tend my sheep. John chapter 21, verse 15 to 17. Let us ponder our gospel passage today that I read earlier and act on its implications for every disciple.